Well, we're talking about bringing the Republican together again. Andy Roth is Executive Vice President of Club for Growth. He joins us now from Washington. Andy, I appreciate your being here because I think, our audience needs to know Club for Growth and me, we've had a little, little thing going here for a while. You guys spent a lot of money and time coming after me before. I've reciprocated. But let's get to the hard facts. What is the criteria for the Club for Growth? What is it you look for in a candidate if you're going to support it? Is it donor-driven or is it issue-driven?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I'd like to go back to a comment you made that I believe 100% in, and that's that we shouldn't be attacking each other if we believe or if we agree on 90% of the issues. In fact, the Club for Growth has a scorecard, a congressional scorecard, and to receive a Defender of Economic Freedom Award from the Club for Growth, you have to get a 90% or above. So those are the kind of the people that we'd love to get elected to Congress. When the Club for Growth finds a conservative challenger to an incumbent Republican who does not have a 90%, they typically have something down in 58, 68%, like Mike Simpson in Idaho or Senator Thad Cochran in Mississippi, two Republican incumbents who the Club for Growth PAC is trying to remove from office.
Well, I looked at some of the criteria, the things the Club for Growth stands for, and I said, gosh, I agree with every one of them. Term limits, balanced budget amendment, lower taxes. I went through the whole list, and I said, I agree with all that. So why does a guy like me or a Tommy Thompson get targeted by Club for Growth?
Well, if we wanted to relitigate your record as governor, we certainly could, but we went through it with a fine-tooth comb and found that it was not a 90% or above kind of record that we liked. And that's simply the reason why we opposed your candidacy for the presidency.
But Andy, let me stop you there. Andy, hold on just a second, because sometimes when you look, you don't look at it in the context of having 89 out of 100 Democrats in my House and 31 out of 35 Democrats in the Senate. I didn't get a lot of stuff I wanted, but I think if you looked at the context, you guys judged me for some stuff that I didn't even do. I remember a spot, and I don't want to go back and relitigate it, but I guess my point is, when the Club for Growth spends as much money going after a Republican, does that do damage to that Republican if, in fact, he or she wins the primary and then becomes, basically beaten up before the general election?
Governor, I think a big difference between your view and my view is that you presume that all Republicans are the 90% and above and that we agree almost overwhelmingly on all sorts of issues. And I don't think that's the case. What Matt and Amy said before on the segment before, and what I agree with, is that there are a lot of Republicans that vote like Democrats. And they're the ones that do damage to the GOP brand. Let's remember that Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, Obama, they all came into power precisely because voters had enough of the GOP during the Bush years, with all of the profligate spending, the earmarks, the new entitlements, the new restrictions on political free speech. It was enough for them, and they thought that the Democrats could provide an alternative. When they found out that the Democrats were even worse, that's when the Tea Party movement came back and we started to reflourish. What I don't want us to do is to go back to that old way, the Bush years of more spending by the Republicans. We need to consolidate the Republican Party around conservative principles, not liberal principles.
Do you think that we would be better off winning the elections? And granted, I don't disagree about the conservative principles, because I personally think that I hold to them a whole lot more than some of the guys you did support. But my question is, if the guy you targeted doesn't win, or the guy you targeted wins the primary anyway, will the club say, okay, we lost the primary, but we're going to go ahead and try to help him win the general? Is that the club's position, or do you leave the guy bleeding?
That's another presumption that's not correct. The Club for Growth is not an organization that backs all Republicans in all elections just because we want a Republican majority. We want a conservative majority. If we believe that the candidate running in the general election will fight for conservative values, yes, we'll support them over the Democrat. If we don't believe that they will, then we won't.
Is there, well, one final question. Is there a criteria, something that a person could go to and say, yeah, this is what the club will stand for? Is it the authenticity of that person's views? And who makes this decision? Is it a committee? I guess that's the question. Who gets to decide what Republican purity looks like? Because that's been a question I've never had anybody help me understand.
Sure. Well, if you go to the Club for Growth's website, you'll see that we have a matrix of issues, and they're just economic issues: the taxes, spending, regulation, free trade. When we decide to endorse a candidate, there is a committee within the Club for Growth, and we have a stringent due diligence process where we interview the candidates involved. We do as much research and opposition research as possible, and then we make a decision based on the evidence that we found.
Andy, I really do appreciate your coming, because I know that, as I say, the Club for Growth and Mike Huckabee have not exactly been big pals. I'd like to continue the conversation sometime, and where we really would have time to relitigate some of those issues. Would you do that with me?
I would love to, Governor.
I would love to do that. Thank you very much for coming, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank you. God
Great
bless.
to have you here. Well, by 2012, the president pulled our